I'm here to tell you about the brand new
In the modern digital age, there are no do-overs. Get caught on camera eating a bacon sandwich a bit funny, or upload your 4 out of 10 version of the Soldier Boy dance and it's out there forever. No matter how much you might cringe at your earlier material, the fact is that you don't get a second chance to do it all again, but better. Not so in video games, where having another stab at a game you already made millions on has become so rote that The Last of Us has come out again twice since you started watching this video. As a result, we've collectively been trained to become fine connoisseurs of the remake process. Prepare to watch your childhoods getting yassified as we look at 7 remakes that changed the most from the original and beware spoilers ahead for the following games.
A few things a typical Silent Hill game remake would have to stockpile: fog effects, blood textures, dialogue lifted straight from Duolingo, and surplus limbs. Ration them tightly enough, and you might even have enough left over to make a new Deadly Premonition when you're finished.
I'm looking for Silent Hill. Is this the right way?
Yeah. It's hard to see with this fog, but there's only the one road. You can't miss it.
But where the original Silent Hill 2 had performances more wooden than George Washington's teeth, Bloober Team's 2024 Silent Hill 2 remake takes a different tack. Ladies and gentlemen, introducing a revolutionary new feature to the series: decent acting.
I'm looking for Silent Hill. Is this the right way?
Yeah. It's hard to see with this fog, but there's only the one road, you can't miss it.
Well, that debunks my favourite fan theory that Silent Hill 2 is actually a high school drama assessment. Back to the conspiracy corkboard. There's an odd phenomenon happening here, because even though visually the Silent Hill 2 remake has evolved by light years, James Sunderland's search for his wife in America's mistiest suburb feels in many ways like a shot-for-shot recreation of the 2001 original. In spite of that, the remake added destructibility, building interiors, a new kind of spidery enemy, new scenes with Maria, and more puzzles. The script itself is hardly ever rewritten, most locations are recreated like for like, and the ones they dropped are at least visually referenced as glimpses of the past, which now basically serve as geographical collectibles that give a nod to previous scenes. One area Bloober Team goes hard on modernising is combat, especially in boss battles. What was once a game of swing and hope is now a bob and weave kind of melee, and anyone still gradually unknotting their shoulder muscles after fighting 3 flesh lips at once in the first game will be relieved to hear that there's only one this time. Although on the downside, it now looks like this. Anyone know a good masseuse? Ah.
A common trap for remakes to stumble into is being overly reverent towards their source material. Bow too deferentially towards the original game, and you leave yourself no creative room to modernise things for a new audience or show the world your fresh take. And when the original material sounds like this, that's a problem.
Listen, he's coming for us. We're both gonna die.
What are you saying?
You'll see.
Perfect take, no notes. Fortunately, Capcom had no problems dispensing with sentimentality when it came to remaking Resident Evil 3, an original they treated with all the deference of a Muppet adaptation of a literary classic. I mean, it gets the gist. Jill Valentine and Carlos Oliveira are once again searching Raccoon City for a T-virus vaccine and obsessively storing items in boxes while being pursued by the Nemesis. But also, I no longer feel like I'm watching the whole thing play out on CCTV cameras placed by Tim Burton.
I'm with the Umbrella Biohazard Countermeasure Service. UBCS for short.
Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? You guys are the ones who caused all of this!
Whoa!
It's not just the fixed cameras and tank controls Capcom lobbed onto the bonfire. Entire locations and plot points from the original game are burned clean away, like this boss battle with a big horrible worm called the Gravedigger. If they'd updated that thing in 4K, I don't think I could have handled it. In place of those cut elements, the remake received slicker cinematic set pieces such as this close quarters boss fight against a transformed beast-like nemesis who can run along the side of buildings and leap huge distances. And of course there's the modernised buttery smooth movement and a newly self-aware style of dialogue.
What the hell was that thing?
He says what we're all thinking.
Agent 006 has already surveyed the facility. Time is of the essence, 007. An unmarked cargo plane is already en route, due to pick up those weapons for the terrorists in 45 minutes. Do you copy?
GoldenEye is as good a candidate for a remake as you'll ever find, and here's why. It was one of the best single-player shooters ever made, it was one of the best multiplayer shooters ever made, and its control scheme was devised using the spinner from a game of Twister. Modernising Rare's vintage shooter should be a straightforward endeavour then. Take all those masterful levels, the perfect gameplay, the fondly remembered characters, and wait! Yeah, quick question, GoldenEye on the Wii. Who the heck are this lot? Apparently, remake developer Eurocom aren't big fans of Mamma Mia or the Eurovision movie, because Pierce Brosnan has been wiped from memory in their remake of GoldenEye and replaced by a haunted waxwork of Daniel Craig. Sean Bean is likewise nowhere to be seen.
Hand it over!
If you insist.
And while levels in the original GoldenEye tended to be taut, tense stealth affairs, James Bond in the GoldenEye remake is pretty much the noisiest spy we've ever seen. You know what we mean.
This is Tanner. The ETA to extraction is 9 minutes.
I haven't got 9 minutes.
Despite that obvious misstep, GoldenEye's 2010 remake went down as one of the best shooters on the Nintendo Wii. Which, yeah, given the number of truly great shooters on the Wii, is a bit like saying one of the best magazines in the proctologist's waiting room. Red Steel could never.
Like the Ship of Theseus or the Sugar Babes, Shadowrun isn't really one specific entity, but more of an overarching concept with a constantly changing set of components. First came the Shadowrun tabletop game in 1989 with 5 new editions of the rulebook over the next 30 years, and then a Shadowrun RPG appeared for 16-bit consoles. The remake that qualifies it for an appearance in this video, however, is Shadowrun for Xbox 360, a 2007 multiplayer tactical shooter that has as much in common with the RPG Shadowrun series as it does with 1992 European political agreement, the Maastricht Treaty. Don't bother trying to spell Maastricht in a Google search bar, just trust me, it's not a lot. Any veterans of the early cyberpunk console RPG who were expecting another role-playing jaunt through the divided states of America in 2075 had to instead get to grips with a multiplayer first-person shooter that played out a bit like a sci-fi fantasy version of Team Fortress. And those who were expecting a rich story from the evocative Shadowrun universe will have been dismayed to discover that there was no campaign mode at all, just the option to run bot matches. Which is why I've had to come up with my own backstories for the bots. This is Reg, and he fights because his wife just left him. The good news though is that this story comes full circle because a new trilogy of RPG games called Shadowrun Returns raised over $1.8 million on Kickstarter back in 2012, and apparently developer Jordan Wiseman was originally inspired to create the project by just how un-Shadowrun the Xbox Shadowrun was.
You're rubbing elbows with orcs, elves, even trolls these days.
A happy ending then. And as for Reg, well, he went on to find love again, I just decided.
So, Cloud, you were a soldier first class, right?
Yeah.
Weird.
Really? What's weird about it?
Nothing. Just that you were the same rank.
Huh? As who?
The first guy I ever loved.
You've got to feel for the team assigned with modernising Final Fantasy VII, a game that's basically just a synonym for everything I cared about during my childhood to an entire generation of PlayStation 1 gamers. In other words, the remake gig for these intrepid Square Enix devs was akin to them washing your favourite blankie without damaging a single fibre, then delivering it to your door with a flawless rendition of the secret handshake you and your best mate invented in 1997. No, Square Enix, it goes high five, down low, spud spud, click. Oh, ruined it! Ruined my life! Ugh. And yet somehow, even though the developers took a turn-based JRPG and turned it into a real-time combat JRPG, our favourite blankie made it through the spin cycle better than ever. Playing this in 2020 after all those years of anticipation and realising that the team had managed to keep everything we liked about the original while making basically a completely different game, the only rational response was childlike wonder. Although admittedly quite a social media savvy child who can't stop tweeting about it and also posting pics from the characteristically super detailed photo mode. Kids are pretty advanced these days. Perhaps the biggest feat of all was adding voiced dialogue to a game that previously only had scrolling text and our imaginations, and then correctly guessing exactly how we imagined those voices would sound.
I am that which you see before you, nothing more.
I knew it. Told you Red had a sexy voice. And everyone said I was weird. Well, who's weird now?
One day, over at Konami's Terrible Ideas division, someone imagined a remake of Metal Gear Solid 1 dressed up as Metal Gear Solid 2. It would feature visual improvements, but also it would play just like Metal Gear Solid 2, and that would work absolutely fine without any tweaks to how combat or boss fights worked. Probably. And that's the true story of how Metal Gear Solid: The Twin Snakes was born, or as it's better known to the modern games industry, Metal Gear Solid: Don't Do Remakes Like This. Chief among this 2005 GameCube remake's problems was that its updated control set made what were once famously tense, taxing boss encounters feel like playing hide-and-seek with your dad in a caravan. But unlike your dad, Revolver Ocelot isn't going to let you win. Putting aside the fact that applying MGS2 controls to MGS1 is like whizzing up an ice cream and pizza smoothie, Twin Snakes also taught us that when you remove all the PS1 graininess and wobbly polygons, it turns out that Shadow Moses has as much character as a motorway service station. Now I know what you're thinking, Terrible Ideas division, you can turn all this around. But trust me, giving the cutscenes Matrix-style whooshes and slow-mo isn't going to help. To be honest, an ice cream and pizza smoothie is starting to sound pretty good after all that.
Say if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, I don't know if they've watched a lot of Mario 64 speedruns, but after you've witnessed enough backwards long jumps up stair sets, it becomes clear that the phrase should actually be, even if it is broke, you should probably just leave it alone once the community gets used to it. Nobody told that incredibly catchy aphorism to Nintendo circa 2004 though, because they were hell-bent on bringing the best 3D platformer ever to the DS in time for launch, and they were going to squash all the bugs regardless of how much the hardcore community had learned to exploit them in the intervening 8 years. And if you're thinking I've set this up for a classic, it didn't go well, payoff here, well, you're just going to have to sit there and be disappointed because the truth's actually a lot more nuanced. Don't look at me like that, you did this to yourself. Mario's DS outing added 5 new levels, 30 stars, and 3 new characters, along with multiplayer and a selection of minigames that are harder to put down than a tube of Pringles. A generous sum total of new bits for an already legendary game, and an inconvenient truth for any hardcore players looking to hate it. However, Mario 64 DS also removed numerous bugs and glitches, like the aforementioned backwards long jump trick, which made the game a lot more polished for newcomers, but completely spoiled all the fun for players who've been testing the game's limits for nearly a decade beforehand. Way to spoil our fun, Mario 64 DS! What are you gonna do next? Stop me looking at the endings of new games before I've even downloaded them? Actually, could you? If you want to tie this nuanced best-worst remake saga up into a neat little bow, you could always level the accusation that the 8-way D-pad on the DS is nowhere near as good as the N64 controller's analog stick, and so every time this happens, you can blame it on the hardware. And I will, along with an alert on my phone at a crucial moment, a passing seagull, and microscopic differences in air pressure. All matters.
Hey, thanks so much for watching this video about remakes. If you want to see a remake, maybe one of these videos is an earlier version of this idea. I don't know, we've done hundreds of these things. It's possible. I mean, I hardly remember what I did yesterday, let alone 10 years ago. Please do click on one of these. Up here is another video from Outside Xtra. Down here is one from the other channel, Outside Xbox. We would love to see you over on either of those, and we will see you next time on Outside Xtra. Thanks for watching.